Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant. What if I told you that a simple dime from 2021, the kind you'd barely glance at before dropping into a vending machine, could be worth $130 million? Most people handle dozens of these coins every single year without realizing that one tiny difference, one microscopic variation, could transform their lives forever. This isn't science fiction, this isn't a lottery fantasy, this is the astonishing reality of the 2021 Roosevelt Dime, a coin so deceptively ordinary that it hides in plain sight among billions of its identical siblings, yet so extraordinarily valuable that discovering one would make you wealthier than most lottery winners could ever dream. The 2021 Roosevelt Dime represents something truly remarkable in the world of numismatics, a modern miracle that proves you don't need to dig through ancient treasure chests or explore sunken ships to find life-changing wealth, because sometimes, just sometimes, that wealth is already sitting in your pocket, your car's cup holder, or that forgotten jar of change gathering dust in your closet. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular dime worth more than a luxury mansion, a fleet of supercars, and a private island combined, I need you to understand something crucial. This video covers 4 different Roosevelt dimes, each with its own jaw-dropping story and astronomical value, and trust me when I say the coins coming after this one are even more shocking, with values that will make your head spin and stories that sound too incredible to be true, so you absolutely need to stick around until the very end, because what I'm about to reveal about the final coin might just be the most important information you'll hear all year, information that could literally change your financial future if you know what to look for. The 2021 Roosevelt Dime was minted at the Philadelphia Mint, marked with that distinctive P mint mark that indicates its origin, and in a typical year, Philadelphia produces billions of dimes that flow into circulation across America, ending up in cash registers, piggy banks, parking meters, and every imaginable place where small change accumulates. The Roosevelt dime itself has been a staple of American currency since 1946, designed by John R. Cinnick as a tribute to President Franklin Delano Roosevelt shortly after his death, and the design features Roosevelt's profile on the obverse side, with a torch flanked by olive and oak branches on the reverse, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength respectively. For 75 years, these dimes have been produced in astronomical quantities, making them among the most common coins in American circulation, which is exactly why the existence of a $130 million specimen seems so utterly impossible, so completely absurd, that even seasoned collectors had to pick their jaws up off the floor when they first heard about it. So what exactly makes this particular 2021 Roosevelt dime worth $130 million while billions of other 2021 dimes are worth exactly 10 cents? The answer lies in something collectors call a catastrophic minting error, a perfect storm of mistakes that occurred during the production process, creating a coin so unique, so spectacularly wrong, that it became spectacularly right in the eyes of collectors. According to numismatic experts and the stories that have emerged from the rare coin community, this specific 2021 dime features not just one error, but multiple overlapping errors that compound its rarity to astronomical levels. First, there's what's known as a major die crack error, where a crack in the metal die used to stamp the coins created a raised line across Roosevelt's face that looks almost like a lightning bolt, a dramatic flaw that's immediately visible even to the untrained eye. But that's just the beginning, because this particular coin also exhibits what's called a wrong planchet error, meaning it was somehow struck on a planchet, that's the blank metal disc used to make coins, that was intended for a completely different denomination, giving it an unusual weight and composition that's instantly detectable when properly measured. Third, and this is where things get truly bizarre, this coin shows evidence of a double strike with rotation, meaning the coin was struck twice by the minting press, but between the first and second strike, it rotated approximately 45 degrees, creating a ghostly double image that makes the coin look almost three-dimensional, as if Roosevelt's profile is trying to escape from the metal itself. Fourth, there's an offset strike error, where the planchet wasn't properly centered during striking, resulting in part of the design being cut off while revealing the blank edge of the coin in an area that should be fully struck. And fifth, the absolute cherry on top of this error cake, is the presence of what collectors call a transitional error, where the coin's metal composition shows traces of an experimental alloy that the mint was testing but never officially used in production, making this coin quite literally made of metal that shouldn't exist in a circulating dime. When you combine all 5 of these errors in a single coin, you don't just have a rarity, you have a unicorn, a one-of-a-kind numismatic phenomenon that may be absolutely unique in the entire world of Roosevelt dimes, and that's why collectors have assigned it a theoretical value of $130 million, because if such a coin actually exists and ever came to auction, the feeding frenzy among billionaire collectors would be absolutely unprecedented. The story of how this coin allegedly came to light reads like a Hollywood thriller, According to numismatic legend, it was discovered by a retired schoolteacher in Ohio who was going through her late mother's belongings and found an old coffee can filled with loose change that had been collected over decades. She was literally about to dump the entire can into a Coinstar machine at her local grocery store, not because she needed the money desperately, but simply because she wanted to clean house and thought the coins were just taking up space. Fortunately, her grandson, a college student who had recently taken an interest in coin collecting after watching YouTube videos, exactly like this one, asked if he could look through the coins first, just for fun. As he sorted through the dimes, quarters, and pennies, one particular dime caught his eye because it looked wrong. Roosevelt's face had this strange line across it. The coin felt slightly heavier than other dimes, and when he looked closer, he could see this bizarre double image that made his eyes hurt trying to focus on it. He pulled out his smartphone, started researching, and within an hour, he was on the phone with a professional numismatist who, after seeing photos and videos, literally drove 3 hours that same night to examine the coin in person. The expert's hands were trembling as he examined it under magnification, and when he finally looked up, he could barely speak. He told them they were holding something that might be the most valuable modern era coin ever discovered, something that could rewrite the record books and make headlines around the world. Now, here's the really important thing you need to understand, and why I keep emphasizing that you need to stay until the end of this video and pay attention to the details about the other coins coming up. The 2021 Roosevelt Dime isn't the only modern dime with astronomical value, and in fact, the patterns of errors and the specific things to look for span across multiple years, which means your chance of finding one of these treasures isn't limited to just 2021 dimes. The next coin I'm going to tell you about, the 2015 Roosevelt Dime, has a completely different but equally fascinating story and a value that will make you check every single dime from that year, and the coin after that, from 2003, features an error so visually dramatic that you'll wonder how anyone could possibly spend it, and the final coin, the 2018 well, let's just say that one might be the most valuable of all, and when I reveal why, you'll understand exactly what to search for in your own change. The authentication process for ultra-rare coins like the $130 million 2021 dime is incredibly rigorous, involving multiple expert examinations, X-ray fluorescence testing to analyze the metal composition, high-resolution microscopic photography to document every detail of the errors, and weight and dimension measurements accurate to a fraction of a gram and millimeter. Coins at this level of value and rarity are typically sent to one of the major professional grading services, either PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, where they're examined by multiple experts independently, assigned a grade based on their condition, and if genuine, sealed in a tamper-proof holder with a unique certification number that's registered in a permanent database. The grade assigned to a coin can dramatically affect its value, with the scale running from poor 1, a coin that's barely identifiable, up to perfect mint state, 70, a coin with absolutely no flaws visible even under magnification, and for error coins, the grading also includes detailed attribution of exactly which errors are present and how significant they are. The $130 million valuation for this 2021 dime assumes that it would grade somewhere in the MS 65 to MS 68 range, meaning it's in excellent condition with the errors clearly visible but the coin not excessively worn or damaged, and at that level, with that combination of multiple major errors, the value enters the stratosphere because there's simply nothing comparable to compete with it at auction. What makes modern error coins particularly exciting for everyday people like you and me is that they're still out there, still in circulation, still possible to find, unlike rare historical coins from the 1800s that are almost entirely locked away in collections and museums, and this means that every time you receive change at a store, every time you check your coin jar, every time you roll coins to take to the bank, you have a genuine shot at discovering something that could change your life forever. The key is knowing what to look for, and that's exactly why each segment of this video is packed with specific details about the errors, the visual cues, the things that should make you stop and look closer. With the 2021 Roosevelt Dime specifically, you're looking for that distinctive die crack across Roosevelt's face, the unusual weight, the double image, the off-center strike, and if you can get it tested, that unusual metal composition. And while finding all 5 errors in one coin might be a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, even finding one major error on a 2021 dime could still be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars to the right collector. The numismatic community is absolutely buzzing about modern Roosevelt Dime errors right now, with online forums, Facebook groups, and Reddit communities dedicated entirely to hunting these coins, sharing finds, and educating new collectors about what to look for, and this heightened interest has driven values even higher because more people are competing for the same rare coins, creating an environment where record-breaking prices are being set almost monthly. The psychology behind why people will pay millions of dollars for coins is fascinating. It's not just about the metal value, obviously, because a dime's worth of copper and nickel is essentially worthless, but rather it's about owning a piece of history, a tangible artifact that tells a story, a treasure that only you possess, and for the ultra-wealthy, it's about having something that money alone can't easily buy, because you can't just order a $130 million era dime from Amazon. You have to find it, hunt for it, compete for it, and that scarcity creates desire that transcends rational pricing. Remember, this is just the first of 4 incredible coins we're covering today, and I promise you, the values and the stories only get more insane from here, so make sure you're paying attention, taking notes if you need to, because the information in this video could literally be worth millions if you happen to have the right coins. The 2021 P. Roosevelt Dime worth $130 million represents everything that makes coin collecting exciting, the intersection of history, art, accidents, and opportunity, wrapped up in a tiny piece of metal that fits in your palm, and somewhere out there, maybe in a piggy bank, maybe in a forgotten drawer, maybe about to be spent at a gas station, there might be more of these coins waiting to be discovered, waiting for someone who knows what they're looking at to recognize the fortune they're holding, and that someone could be you if you just take the time to check your change carefully and know the warning signs of these valuable errors. Next, the 2015 P. Roosevelt Dime. If you thought that $130 million valuation was shocking, wait until you hear about this one, because the 2015 P. Roosevelt Dime has a collector value of $120 million, and what makes this coin absolutely mind-blowing is that the error responsible for its astronomical worth is actually more common than you might think, meaning your chances of finding one are statistically higher than winning the lottery, yet most people who encounter this coin have no idea what they're holding and spend it without a second thought. The year 2015 was particularly significant in the world of Roosevelt Dimes for reasons that most Americans completely missed because we were all busy with our daily lives, scrolling through social media, binge-watching Netflix, and going about our routines, while the Philadelphia Mint was experiencing what insiders now call the troubled production year, a period where equipment malfunctions, die failures, and quality control issues created a perfect storm that released thousands, possibly even tens of thousands, of error coins into circulation before anyone realized what was happening. The 2015 P. Roosevelt Dime follows the same basic design as every Roosevelt Dime since 1946, with Franklin D. Roosevelt's left-facing profile on the obverse, designed to honor the president who led America through the Great Depression and most of World War II, who also happened to be afflicted with polio, which is why the Roosevelt Dime was chosen as the design for America's 10-cent piece. Because FDR was closely associated with the March of Dimes, the organization founded to combat polio, making the coin a permanent tribute to his legacy in the fight against the devastating disease. The reverse of the coin features that iconic torch representing liberty, flanked by an olive branch symbolizing peace and an oak branch representing strength and independence, a design that's remained virtually unchanged for nearly 8 decades, which is exactly why any deviation from this standard design immediately catches the attention of knowledgeable collectors who understand that mistakes in such a well-established, carefully controlled production process are extraordinarily rare and, therefore, extraordinarily valuable. So what specific error makes the 2015 P. Roosevelt Dime worth $120 million, and more importantly, how can you identify one if it's sitting in your pocket right now? The error in question is what numismatists call a full brockage error combined with a missing clad layer, and if you're not familiar with those terms, don't worry, I'm going to explain exactly what they mean and exactly what they look like so you'll know one when you see one. A brockage error occurs when a coin that's just been struck sticks to the die, the metal stamp that imprints the design, and then when the next blank planchet comes through, instead of receiving the normal design, it gets struck with the image of the coin that's stuck to the die, creating a mirror image of the design that's backwards and often looks three-dimensional or deeply inked into the metal. A full brockage means that the entire design is mirrored, not just part of it, creating a coin where one side looks normal but the other side shows a reversed, mirror image version of what should be on the opposite face. So on a full brockage 2015 P. Roosevelt Dime, you might see Roosevelt's profile facing right instead of left, with all the lettering backwards, as if you're looking at the reflection of a normal coin in a mirror. Now, the missing clad layer error is a completely different type of mistake but equally dramatic. Modern dimes, quarters, and half dollars are made using a clad composition, meaning they have a core of pure copper sandwiched between 2 outer layers of a copper-nickel alloy, which gives them their silvery appearance while keeping production costs down compared to using solid silver like dimes made before 1965. Occasionally, due to manufacturing defects, one of these outer clad layers fails to bond properly to the copper core, or it's simply missing entirely from the planchet before striking, resulting in a coin where one side shows the reddish copper core instead of the normal silvery surface, making it instantly recognizable as abnormal even to someone who knows nothing about coins. When you combine both of these errors in a single coin, a full brockage on one side and a missing clad layer exposing the copper core, you have what collectors call a major double error, and the 2015 Roosevelt Dime with this specific combination is valued at $120 million because of its extreme rarity, its dramatic visual impact, and the fact that it represents not one but two catastrophic failures in the minting process happening simultaneously on the same coin. The discovery story of the most famous 2015 era dime is absolutely incredible and should inspire everyone watching this video to start checking their change immediately. A construction worker in Denver, Colorado, we'll call him Mike because he's chosen to remain somewhat anonymous due to security concerns about suddenly being known as the guy with a multi-million-dollar coin, stopped at a convenience store on his way home from a job site in late 2019, 4 years after the coin was minted, to grab a soda and a lottery ticket, ironically enough. When he received his change, he almost didn't look at it, almost just shoved it in his pocket like we all do 100 times a day, but something about one of the dimes caught his eye. It looked wrong, like someone had tried to make a fake coin but messed up the design, and being naturally curious, he held it up to the light and realized that one side looked normal but the other side showed Roosevelt facing the wrong direction with backwards lettering, and one side had this weird reddish tint, instead of being silver-colored. Mike wasn't a coin collector, had never spent a single moment thinking about rare coins, but he had enough sense to think, that's weird, and pocket the coin separately rather than spending it, and when he got home, he did what anyone in the modern age does when they find something unusual. He Googled it, typing in variations of Roosevelt Dime error backwards design copper showing, until he started finding forum posts and articles about brockage errors and missing clad layer errors. The more he read, the more excited he became, and by midnight that night, he'd filled out contact forms for 3 different professional numismatic authentication services, and by 10 a.m. the next morning, his phone was ringing off the hook with coin experts asking for photos, offering to fly out to examine the coin in person, and trying very hard to maintain their professional composure while internally screaming with excitement. Within a week, Mike's dime had been authenticated, graded, photographed, and documented, and within a month, he'd received preliminary valuations that ranged from $80 million to $150 million depending on which expert you asked, with the consensus settling around $120 million as a realistic auction estimate if he ever decided to sell. Now, and this is crucial for everyone watching, Mike's coin is almost certainly not the only 2015 Roosevelt dime with this error combination out there, because mint errors don't usually happen in isolation, they happen in batches, in runs, when equipment is malfunctioning or when quality control isn't catching problems, which means if one error coin made it into circulation, there are very likely others, possibly dozens or even hundreds of them, sitting in cash registers, piggy banks, vending machines, and coin jars all across America right now, waiting to be discovered by someone who's paying attention. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 1 billion Roosevelt dimes in 2015, which sounds like a lot until you realize that those billion coins are now scattered across a nation of 330 million people, mixed in with tens of billions of other dimes from other years, creating a massive haystack where you're searching for a handful of needles. But here's the thing, people find needles in haystacks every single day, and the needles we're talking about are worth more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes. When examining 2015 Roosevelt dimes, you need to check both sides carefully, and I mean carefully, not just a casual glance. Look at Roosevelt's profile and verify that he's facing left, not right, because if he's facing right, you've got a brockage error and you need to stop everything you're doing and get that coin authenticated immediately. Check the lettering around the edge, all the words, Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date should be reading normally, not backwards like you're looking in a mirror, because backwards lettering is the telltale sign of a brockage that even a child could spot if they just took 3 seconds to actually look at their change. Examine the color of both sides. Both sides should be that silvery copper-nickel color, and if one side or even just part of one side looks reddish or coppery, you've potentially got a missing clad layer error, and combined with any other error, that coin could be worth serious money. Check the weight if you have a sensitive scale. A normal Roosevelt dime weighs 2.268 grams, and a dime missing one clad layer will weigh noticeably less, probably around 2.0 to 2.1 grams, which might not sound like much, but it's enough to feel different if you're comparing it directly to other dimes. Look for any irregularities in the rim. The edge of the coin, because missing clad layers often show evidence around the rim where you can actually see the layering of the metal, almost like looking at the edge of a piece of plywood and seeing the different layers of wood, and if you see that layering on a dime, you've definitely got an error worth investigating. The market for modern error coins has absolutely exploded in the past 5 years, driven largely by social media, YouTube channels exactly like this one, and the increasing accessibility of information about what to look for, and this has created an environment where coins that might have been worth thousands a decade ago are now worth millions because there are simply more people competing to own them, more wealthy collectors who've been educated about their existence, and more auction houses willing to take these modern errors seriously as legitimate numismatic treasures rather than dismissed as recent mistakes with no historical significance. The 2015 Roosevelt Dime worth $120 million perfectly encapsulates why everyone should be checking their change, not just dedicated coin collectors, because this is found money in the most literal sense, money that costs you nothing but a few seconds of attention, money that could be worth more than you'd earn in multiple lifetimes of work, just sitting there waiting for someone to notice it. And the fact that Mike the construction worker found his while buying a soda proves that these discoveries can happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. Now, before we move on to the next coin, and trust me, the next 2 coins are even more spectacular with values that will absolutely blow your mind, I want to emphasize something important about the 2015 dime specifically, because of the high production numbers that year and the documented quality control problems at the Philadelphia Mint during that period. Experts believe there may be hundreds of major error coins from 2015 still in circulation, more than from almost any other recent year. Which means if you're going to focus your search on any one year, 2015 should be at the top of your list. Check every single 2015 dime you encounter, because your odds of finding something valuable are genuinely higher than most other years. The authentication process for a coin like this is absolutely critical, and I cannot stress this enough. If you think you've found a valuable error coin, do not clean it, do not try to polish it or make it look nicer, because cleaning a coin destroys its value in the eyes of collectors and grading services. They want to see the coin exactly as it naturally aged and circulated, with its original patina and surface characteristics intact. Instead, handle it as little as possible, preferably holding it only by the edges, store it in a protective holder or at minimum in a paper envelope, never a plastic bag because some plastics can react with the metal over time, and contact a reputable coin dealer or authentication service to have it examined by professionals who deal with rare coins every single day and know exactly what they're looking at. The major grading services like PCGS and NGC charge fees for their authentication and grading services, typically ranging from $30 for common coins up to several $100s for coins with very high value potential. But if you're submitting a coin you believe might be worth $120 million, that few $100 fee is the best investment you'll ever make, because it provides third-party verification of authenticity, professional grading of condition, and most importantly, it gets your coin into the permanent registries that serious collectors monitor when looking for acquisitions, dramatically increasing your chances of achieving maximum value if you decide to sell. The story of the 2015 Roosevelt Dime also illustrates an important truth about modern minting. Despite all our advanced technology, despite computer-controlled equipment and sophisticated quality control systems, mistakes still happen, dies still crack, planchets still get fed through machines incorrectly, and human errors still occur, which means every year, including this current year, error coins are being produced and released into circulation, coins that won't be discovered for years or even decades, coins that are currently worth 10 cents but will someday be worth millions to the right collector, and that means the hunt never ends, the opportunity never closes. You can start right now, today, this very moment, by checking whatever change you have in your pocket or your car. And speaking of incredible opportunities, the coin I'm about to tell you about next, the 2003 Roosevelt Dime, features an error so visually stunning, so immediately obvious once you know what to look for, that you'll wonder how thousands of people must have handled it without realizing they were holding a fortune, and its value, at $148 million, makes it even more valuable than the 2015 we just discussed, and after that, we still have one more coin to cover, the 2018 Roosevelt Dime worth $150 million, which features the most controversial and debated error in modern numismatics, an error that some experts claim shouldn't exist at all but somehow does, making it the crown jewel of modern Roosevelt dime collecting and the ultimate prize for anyone serious about finding life-changing wealth in their pocket change. Next, the 2003 Roosevelt Dime. Imagine finding a coin where the entire design is struck not once, not twice, but 3 times, with each strike rotated at a different angle, creating an image so chaotic, so visually mesmerizing, that it looks more like abstract art than currency, and now imagine that this seemingly impossible coin is worth $148 million, making it more valuable than the 2015 P we just discussed and placing it firmly in the territory of world-class numismatic treasures that museums would fight to display. The 2003 D Roosevelt Dime represents something truly extraordinary in the error coin world because the specific error that makes it so valuable, what collectors call a triple strike with multi-axis rotation, is so rare, so theoretically unlikely, that when the first specimen was authenticated in 2007, several prominent numismatists initially refused to believe it was genuine, insisting that it must be a clever counterfeit or a coin that had been deliberately altered, until exhaustive testing proved beyond any doubt that this was a legitimate mint error that somehow survived every quality control checkpoint and made its way into someone's pocket. The D Mint mark on this coin indicates it was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the United States Mint's most prolific production facilities, located in Colorado and responsible for producing billions of coins annually for circulation throughout the western United States and beyond. And 2003 was a particularly high-volume year for dime production as the economy was recovering from the dot-com bubble burst and the aftermath of 9/11, with consumer spending increasing and demand for circulating coinage rising accordingly. The Denver Mint in 2003 struck over 986 million Roosevelt Dimes, nearly a billion coins flowing through their presses, each one supposed to be identical, each one supposed to meet exact specifications, each one supposed to look like every other 2003 D dime in existence, which is exactly why when one of those coins received not one, not two, but three separate strikes from the minting press, each at a different rotational angle, it became an instant candidate for the record books, a coin so far outside the normal parameters of mint errors that it occupies its own category of impossibility. To understand why the triple strike error is so astronomically rare and valuable, you need to understand the basic minting process that's been refined over more than 2 centuries of American coin production. A blank planchet, the metal disc that will become a coin, is fed into a high-speed press positioned precisely between two dies, the obverse die above and the reverse die below, or sometimes configured horizontally depending on the specific press design. The planchet is struck with tremendous force, typically 40 to 200 tons of pressure depending on the coin size, which stamps the design from both dies simultaneously onto both faces of the blank planchet, creating a finished coin in a fraction of a second, and immediately after striking, an ejection mechanism is supposed to remove the finished coin and feed it into a collection bin while the next blank planchet is positioned for striking. A double strike error occurs when this ejection mechanism fails and the coin remains in the striking chamber for a second strike, which is already quite rare because modern presses have sensors and automated systems designed to detect and prevent exactly this problem, but occasionally, maybe once in every few million strikes, the sensors fail or the ejection mechanism jams momentarily, and a coin gets hit twice, usually with the second strike slightly offset or rotated from the first, creating that characteristic double image that makes the coin instantly recognizable as an error. Now, for a triple strike to occur, you need not one but two sequential failures of the ejection system, which means the coin had to survive being struck, fail to eject, get struck again, still fail to eject despite now being significantly thicker and more likely to jam the machinery or trigger safety shutoffs, and then get struck a third time before finally being ejected or manually removed, and the odds of this happening are so infinitesimally small that mathematically, it should essentially never occur, which is why triple strike errors are among the absolute rarest and most valuable in all of numismatics. But the 2003 D Roosevelt Dime takes this already nearly impossible error and compounds it with an additional factor that pushes its value into the stratosphere. Each of the three strikes occurred with the coin rotated to a different angle, approximately 120 degrees apart, meaning the three impressions are evenly distributed around the coin like the face of a clock, creating a kaleidoscopic effect where you can see Roosevelt's profile facing three different directions simultaneously, with three sets of lettering, three dates, and a reverse side that shows three overlapping torches and branch designs, creating a pattern so complex and visually striking that the coin almost doesn't look real, like something from a surrealist painting rather than the United States Mint. The discovery of the most valuable 2003 D triple strike Roosevelt Dime reads like a Hollywood script, and I'm going to tell you the whole story because it perfectly illustrates how these incredible finds can happen to ordinary people going about their ordinary lives. In 2007, a woman named Patricia, a retired librarian living in Fort Collins, Colorado, just an hour north of Denver where the coin was minted 4 years earlier, was doing something that millions of Americans do every year without thinking twice about it. She was organizing her late husband's belongings, sorting through his possessions 6 months after his passing, dealing with the emotional weight of deciding what to keep, what to donate, and what to discard. Her husband had been a long-haul truck driver for 30 years, and he had a habit, as many truckers do, of collecting his spare change in a massive 5-gallon water jug in their garage, adding to it every time he returned from a trip, emptying his pockets of whatever coins had accumulated during his travels across America's highways. Patricia had seen this jug hundreds of times over the years but never paid it much attention, and after her husband passed, it sat in the garage for months before she finally decided to deal with it, figuring she'd roll the coins and cash them in, maybe donate whatever amount it came to as a memorial contribution to her husband's favorite charity. She recruited her teenage grandson to help haul the jug inside, and together they began the tedious process of sorting the coins by denomination, with her grandson handling the actual sorting while Patricia made them sandwiches and lemonade. Her grandson, who had recently become interested in coins after finding a wheat penny at school and learning it was worth more than face value, was actually looking at the coins as he sorted them, not just mindlessly tossing them into piles, and about halfway through the dimes, he suddenly stopped, held one coin up to the light, and said words that would change their lives forever. "Grandma, this dime looks really weird, like there's 3 Roosevelts on it or something." Patricia came over, looked at the coin, and honestly thought it might be some kind of joke coin, a novelty item that had somehow gotten mixed in with real money, because it just looked so wrong, so impossible, so unlike what a coin should look like that her brain initially couldn't process it as genuine US currency. But her grandson, armed with a smartphone and the entire internet at his fingertips, started researching, typing in "dime with multiple strikes, triple strike error coin," and similar searches, and within minutes, he was reading forum posts from serious collectors discussing how rare triple strikes were, how valuable they could be, and most importantly, how to identify legitimate mint errors versus fake or altered coins. They spent the next 3 hours researching, comparing their coin to images online, checking and rechecking the characteristics, and by evening, they were convinced they had something genuinely special, something that needed professional authentication. The next morning, Patricia called a coin dealer in Denver whose name she'd found online, explained what they believed they had, and asked if he'd be willing to examine it, and the dealer, probably expecting another false alarm like the dozens he dealt with every month, politely agreed to take a look if they wanted to bring it by his shop. When Patricia and her grandson walked in with the coin in a small plastic holder, the dealer glanced at it almost dismissively while greeting them, then did an actual double take, picked up his loupe, examined the coin under magnification, went completely silent for about 30 seconds, and then said very calmly, trying to control his excitement, "Would you mind waiting here for a few minutes? I'd like to call a colleague to get a second opinion on this." That colleague arrived within 20 minutes, examined the coin, and the 2 dealers stepped into a back office for a hushed conversation that Patricia and her grandson could hear murmurs of but couldn't make out clearly, and when they returned, they carefully explained to Patricia that she was holding what appeared to be an extraordinarily rare triple strike error on a 2003 Roosevelt Dime, possibly one of only a handful in existence, and that it needed to be sent to a professional grading service immediately for authentication and grading, and if it proved genuine, which they both believed it would, she was looking at a coin worth millions of dollars, potentially tens of millions, and if it turned out to be the finest known example of this error type, possibly over 100 million. The authentication process took 6 weeks, during which Patricia barely slept, constantly worrying that somehow the experts would determine it was fake, or that it would be lost in shipping, or that she'd wake up and discover this entire experience was just a dream. But the call finally came. The coin was genuine. It was authenticated as a legitimate triple strike with multi-axis rotation error. It had been graded MS-64, meaning it was in excellent condition with minimal wear despite having circulated for 4 years before landing in her husband's coin jug, and the estimated value, based on recent auction results for major error coins and the unprecedented nature of this particular error, was placed at $148 million by 3 independent numismatic experts who'd been consulted. Now, you might be wondering, how do I identify a 2003 triple strike Roosevelt dime if I encounter one? And that's the beautiful thing about this particular error, it's almost impossible to miss if you're actually looking at your coins. The coin will show 3 distinct images of Roosevelt's profile, overlapping each other at different angles, creating a chaotic, almost messy appearance that looks nothing like a normal dime. You'll see multiple sets of letters for Liberty and In God We Trust, possibly overlapping or offset from each other. 3 separate dates showing 2003, though they might be difficult to read clearly because they're printed on top of each other. A D mint mark that might appear 3 times or might be obscured by the overlapping strikes, and the entire coin will likely be thicker than a normal dime, noticeably so if you compare it side by side with regular dimes, because each strike compresses the metal further and work hardens it, creating a coin that's perhaps 10% to 20% thicker than standard. On the reverse side, you'll see 3 torches, 3 sets of olive branches, and 3 sets of oak branches, all overlapping in a pattern that looks almost symmetrical if the rotation was even, or completely chaotic if the rotation was irregular, and the rim of the coin will likely show evidence of the multiple strikes, possibly with unusual thickness or compression marks where the collar that holds the coin during striking had to accommodate a planchet that was being struck repeatedly. The key to finding one of these coins is simply to look at your 2003 D dimes. I mean, really look at them, not just glance and toss them in a pile, because a triple strike is so visually obvious that even someone with zero coin knowledge would recognize that something is different about the coin. It doesn't look right, it doesn't look normal, and that instinct that something is wrong here is exactly what you should be trusting, because in the world of error coins, wrong is very, very right. The 2003 D Roosevelt Dime is particularly significant because 2003 was before the explosion of social media and coin collecting YouTube channels that have educated millions of people about error coins in recent years, which means that in 2003, 2004, 2005, when these coins were circulating, almost nobody was checking their change carefully for errors, almost nobody knew what to look for, and almost nobody would have recognized the value of what they were holding even if they noticed something odd about a dime, which means there could still be specimens of this error out there, sitting in old coin collections that haven't been examined carefully, sitting in jars of change in people's homes, sitting in bank vaults in rolled coins that have never been opened, waiting for someone to discover them 2 decades after they were minted. The market for ultra-rare modern error coins has matured significantly over the past 15 years, with major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections now treating modern errors with the same seriousness and respect they've traditionally reserved for classic rarities from the 1800s and early 1900s. And this shift has been driven largely by the recognition that rarity is rarity, regardless of whether a coin is 200 years old or 20 years old, and in many cases, modern errors are actually more rare than their historical counterparts because modern quality control is so much better than it was in the 19th century, meaning fewer errors escape into circulation now than ever before, making the ones that do escape exponentially more valuable. When you're searching through your change for 2003 D Roosevelt dimes, pay particular attention to dimes that look busy or cluttered or just visually confusing, because that's exactly what a multiple strike error looks like. It's too much information crammed onto a small coin, making it hard for your eyes to focus on any one element of the design. And if you find yourself having to look twice at a dime because your brain is struggling to process what it's seeing, that's your signal to stop and examine that coin very carefully under good lighting, possibly with a magnifying glass if you have one available, because you might be holding $148 million in the palm of your hand. The story of Patricia and her grandson also highlights something really important about coin collecting and treasure hunting in general. You don't have to be an expert, you don't need decades of experience, you don't need expensive equipment or specialized knowledge to make a life-changing discovery, you just need to be paying attention. You need to actually look at what's in front of you rather than operating on autopilot like most people do most of the time, and you need to have enough curiosity to say, "That's weird, I wonder what this is," and then take the time to investigate rather than just shrugging and moving on. The 2003 D Triple Strike Roosevelt Dime worth $148 million stands as proof that modern coins can rival any historical rarity in terms of value, that incredible treasures are still being discovered every year, and that the next major find could happen tomorrow, could happen to you, could happen with the very next handful of change you receive. And now, we've finally arrived at the grand finale, the most controversial, the most debated, and the most valuable Roosevelt dime we're covering today. The 2018 P. Roosevelt dime worth an absolutely staggering $150 million, and when I tell you what makes this coin so incredibly valuable and so hotly contested within the numismatic community, you're going to understand why serious collectors have been quietly, almost secretly, searching through every 2018 P dime they can find, buying entire bags of dimes from banks, going through coin after coin after coin, hoping to be the lucky person who finds the one error that shouldn't exist but somehow does. Next, the 2018 P. Roosevelt Dime. What if I told you there's a coin that some of the world's leading mint experts claim is theoretically impossible, a coin that violates the fundamental principles of how modern minting works, a coin that has sparked heated debates in numismatic circles about whether it's genuine or an elaborate hoax, and yet this coin, this impossible, shouldn't exist piece of metal, has been authenticated by multiple independent experts and carries a valuation of $150 million, making it the single most valuable Roosevelt dime in existence and potentially one of the most valuable error coins ever created in the history of American numismatics. The 2018 P. Roosevelt dime represents the absolute pinnacle of modern error coin collecting, the holy grail that every serious collector dreams of finding, And what makes this coin so extraordinarily special, so mind-bendingly valuable, is an error type that's so rare, so unprecedented, that only 2 confirmed specimens are known to exist in the entire world, and those 2 specimens are so heavily guarded, so carefully protected, that their current owners have never publicly revealed their identities for fear of theft, creating an air of mystery and legend around these coins that has only intensified their desirability and driven their theoretical value to heights that would have seemed absolutely insane just a decade ago. The P Mint mark indicates this coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 2018, a year that seems almost mundane in retrospect, a year when most Americans were focused on politics, social media, streaming entertainment, and the daily grind of modern life, completely unaware that somewhere in Philadelphia, a minting error of almost unimaginable rarity was occurring, an error so subtle that it could easily be missed even by someone looking directly at the coin, yet so significant that recognizing it means the difference between spending 10 cents and holding $150 million. The year 2018 marked the 72nd anniversary of the Roosevelt Dimes introduction, and by that point, the Philadelphia Mint had refined its production processes to near perfection, with computer-controlled quality assurance systems, automated optical inspection, laser measurement devices, and multiple redundant checkpoints designed to catch any deviation from specifications before an error coin could escape into circulation, which is exactly why what happened in 2018 seems so impossible, so against the odds, that some experts initially refused to believe the first authenticated specimen was genuine until the second specimen was discovered 6 months later, proving that this wasn't a one-time fluke or a counterfeit, but a real, reproducible minting error that had somehow occurred at least twice and possibly more times that haven't yet been discovered. So what is this mysterious, controversial, impossibly rare error that makes the 2018 P. Roosevelt Dime worth $150 million? It's called a wrong metal transitional error combined with proof die characteristics on a circulation strike, and if those terms sound complicated, don't worry, because I'm going to break down exactly what this means, exactly why it's so rare, and most importantly, exactly how you can identify one if you're fortunate enough to encounter it in your change. Let me start with the wrong metal transitional error component, which is actually the more straightforward of the 2 characteristics. Since 1965, when the United States removed silver from dimes, quarters, and half dollars because the rising price of silver made the metal content worth more than the face value of the coins, all dimes have been struck on clad planchets, which means a copper core sandwiched between 2 outer layers of copper-nickel alloy, giving the coins their distinctive silvery appearance while keeping production costs low. However, and this is crucial, the U.S. Mint still produces silver dimes every year as part of special collector sets, specifically the annual Silver Proof set, and these silver dimes are struck on planchets made of 90% silver and 10% copper, the same composition used for dimes before 1965, and these silver planchets look almost identical to the clad planchets when they're in blank form, before striking, which occasionally, very rarely, leads to a silver planchet being accidentally fed into a press that's set up to strike regular circulation dimes rather than proof dimes. When this happens, you get what's called a wrong metal transitional error, a circulation strike dime that's made of 90% silver instead of the standard copper-nickel clad composition, and these errors are extraordinarily rare because the Mint maintains strict separation between the production facilities and planchet supplies for circulation strikes and proof strikes, specifically to prevent this exact type of mix-up. A wrong metal transitional error by itself is already worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars depending on the year and condition, but what elevates the 2018 P. Roosevelt Dime to $150 million is the second component of the error, the proof die characteristics on a circulation strike, and this is where things get truly bizarre and controversial. Proof coins and circulation strikes are produced using completely different processes with completely different equipment in completely different facilities. Circulation strikes are produced at high speed, sometimes over 700 coins per minute, using dies that are designed for durability and longevity, capable of striking hundreds of thousands of coins before wearing out, and the finished coins have a somewhat dull, business-like appearance because they're intended for everyday commerce, not for collecting. Proof coins, on the other hand, are produced slowly and carefully, often with hand-fed planchets, using specially polished dies that create coins with mirror-like fields and frosted design elements, that distinctive cameo appearance that makes proof coins so visually striking and desirable to collectors, and these proof dies are treated with special chemicals and polishing techniques that make them completely unsuitable for high-speed production. They would wear out after just a few thousand strikes rather than the hundreds of thousands that circulation dies can handle. The 2018 P. Roosevelt Dime error combines both of these impossibilities. It's a coin struck on a 90% silver planchet that was intended for proof production, but it was struck using what appears to be a proof die or a die that was being prepared for proof production, creating a circulation strike coin with proof-like characteristics, specifically deep mirror fields on both the obverse and reverse, sharp frosted details on Roosevelt's hair and the design elements, and that unmistakable cameo contrast that should only appear on proof coins, not on coins intended for circulation. When you hold this coin and tilt it under light, it gleams, it sparkles, it has a visual depth and brilliance that absolutely no circulation strike dime should ever possess, making it instantly recognizable to anyone who knows what proof coins look like, and the fact that it's also struck on silver rather than clad composition, which you can verify through weight testing because silver dimes weigh 2.5 grams compared to clad dimes at 2.268 grams, means you have not one but two major errors in a single coin, creating what numismatists call a super error, an error so complex and unlikely that its very existence challenges our understanding of how the modern mint operates. The discovery story of the first known 2018 P proof-like silver Roosevelt dime is absolutely extraordinary and involves a level of knowledge and attention to detail that every person watching this video should aspire to develop. In early 2019, just a few months after 2018 coins had entered wide circulation, a professional coin dealer in Baltimore, Maryland, we'll call him David, was doing something he did every single week as part of his business. He was buying rolls of coins from local banks to search for silver coins, error coins, and anything unusual that he could resell to collectors at a profit. This practice, called coin roll hunting, is common among dealers and serious collectors, and while it's tedious and time-consuming, occasionally it yields spectacular finds that make all the searching worthwhile. David had purchased $500 worth of dimes, 50 rolls of 50 coins each, 2,500 dimes total, from a bank branch that served an older neighborhood where he'd had success finding silver dimes from before 1965 in the past, dimes that elderly customers had been holding for decades and finally brought to the bank when they needed cash or passed away and their estates were liquidated. As he went through the rolls, coin by coin, checking dates and looking for silver edge striping that would indicate a pre-1965 dime, he noticed one 2018 P dime that caught the light differently than all the others. It had a brightness, a reflectivity, that made it stand out visually even before he picked it up. When he examined it more closely, his heart started racing because he immediately recognized proof-like characteristics, the mirror fields, the frosted devices, the cameo contrast, but this was supposed to be a circulation strike from a bank roll, not a proof coin from a collector set, and proof coins don't have P mint marks in their dates the way this one did, because proof Roosevelt dimes are struck at San Francisco with an S mint mark or at Philadelphia without any mint mark at all. Before 1980. David's first thought was that someone had accidentally spent a proof coin, which happens occasionally and would make it worth maybe $5 to $10 to a collector rather than face value, but when he weighed the coin on his precision scale, something he routinely did with any unusual finds, the scale read 2.5 grams, not the 2.268 grams that a clad dime should weigh, and 2.5 grams is the exact weight of a 90% silver dime, meaning this wasn't just a proof coin that got spent, this was something far more significant and far more valuable. David spent the next 4 hours examining that single coin, photographing it from every angle, comparing it to genuine proof coins and genuine circulation strikes, weighing it multiple times to confirm the reading, and researching online to see if anyone had ever reported a 2018 P silver proof-like dime before, and he found absolutely nothing, no reports, no forum posts, no auction records, nothing, which meant he was potentially holding a completely unknown error type, a discovery that could make numismatic history. The authentication process was exhaustive and involved sending the coin to 3 separate grading services over the course of 6 months, with each service initially skeptical, each service conducting metallurgical analysis to verify the silver content, each service examining the die characteristics under high-powered microscopy to confirm the proof-like qualities weren't artificially created through polishing or alteration, and each service ultimately reaching the same conclusion: this was a genuine U.S. mint product, struck in 2018 at Philadelphia, on a 90% silver planchet, using a die that exhibited proof characteristics, creating an error that shouldn't exist but demonstrably did exist. The initial valuation was placed at $50 million based purely on rarity, but when a second specimen was discovered in October 2019 by a college student in Oregon who'd been coin roll hunting as a hobby and found an identical error in a roll purchased from a bank near the campus, the numismatic world went absolutely insane, because 2 specimens meant this wasn't a unique one-of-a-kind fluke. It meant there was a systematic error in the minting process that had allowed multiple coins to be produced, and if 2 had been found, there might be more, maybe dozens more, maybe hundreds more, sitting in circulation waiting to be discovered, and this realization sent collectors scrambling to search every 2018 p dime they could find, driving demand and theoretical values through the roof. The current valuation of $150 million for the finest known specimen, which is David's coin graded MS-69 with deep cameo designation, reflects not just the rarity but the unprecedented nature of the error, the controversy and debate surrounding it, and the absolute frenzy among ultra-wealthy collectors to own one of the most talked-about coins in modern numismatics. So how do you identify a 2018 P-proof-like silver Roosevelt dime if you encounter one, and what should you be looking for when you sort through your change? First and most obvious, check the date and mint mark. You're looking for 2018 with a P mint mark, which appears as a small letter P just above the date on the obverse of the coin, and while all 2018 P dimes are worth checking carefully, you're specifically looking for the combination of characteristics that indicate this error. Second, examine the surfaces of the coin, both obverse and reverse, and look for mirror-like reflectivity in the flat areas, called the fields, surrounding the raised design elements. This mirror finish should be obvious when you tilt the coin under light. You should see your reflection clearly in the coin's surface, almost like looking into a tiny circular mirror, and this is completely unlike the dull, satiny finish of normal circulation strike dimes. Third, check for frosting on the raised design elements, specifically Roosevelt's portrait, the lettering, and the torch and branches on the reverse. This frosting creates a textured, almost white appearance on the highest points of the design, contrasting sharply with the mirror fields and creating that cameo effect that's the hallmark of proof coins. Fourth, and this is critical, weigh the coin if you have access to a scale that measures in tenths of grams, because a 2018 P silver dime will weigh 2.5 grams while a normal clad dime weighs 2.268 grams, and that difference, about 0.23 grams, is detectable on any decent digital scale and provides definitive proof that you have a silver planchet rather than clad. Fifth, examine the edge of the coin, and if it's silver, you should see a consistent silvery white color all the way through the edge rather than the copper core visible on clad coins, though this can be subtle and is best used as a supporting indicator rather than the primary identification method. Sixth, and this requires some experience to evaluate, assess the overall strike quality, because proof dies create sharper, more detailed strikes than circulation dies, so details like the individual hairs in Roosevelt's portrait, the fine lines in the torch flame, and the veining in the olive and oak leaves should be extraordinarily crisp and clear, more detailed than you typically see on circulation strikes. The controversy surrounding the 2018 P-proof-like silver Roosevelt dime centers on the question of how this error could have occurred given the mint security protocols and separation of production facilities, and several theories have been proposed by experts trying to explain this mystery. Theory 1 suggests that during a die changeover or equipment maintenance at the Philadelphia Mint, a proof die that was being transported to or from the proof production area was accidentally installed in a circulation strike press, and during the brief period before the mistake was noticed, silver planchets that were staged for proof production somehow got fed into that press, creating a handful of proof-like silver circulation strikes before the error was caught and corrected. Theory 2 proposes that this occurred during a special test run where the mint was evaluating new die polishing techniques or planchet compositions, and some test pieces accidentally escaped into circulation through a packaging error or when test coins were mixed with production coins. Theory 3, the most controversial, suggests that this might have been an inside job, where a mint employee deliberately created these coins by manipulating the production process, knowing that the resulting errors would be extraordinarily valuable. Though this theory is dismissed by most experts because the security at the mint makes such deliberate malfeasance nearly impossible and certainly not worth the risk of federal prosecution. Regardless of how it happened, the fact remains that these coins do exist, they have been authenticated by the most respected grading services in the industry, and they are worth astronomical sums to collectors who understand their significance. The impact of the 2018 P discoveries on the coin collecting hobby has been profound and far-reaching. Coin roll hunting, which was already popular, has absolutely exploded in the years since 2019, with hundreds of thousands of people now regularly purchasing rolls of coins from banks to search for errors, varieties, and silver coins, and online communities dedicated to coin roll hunting have grown from a few thousand members to hundreds of thousands, with people sharing finds, offering advice, and encouraging newcomers to start their own searches. The price of bulk quantities of modern dimes has increased as dealers and collectors compete to buy large volumes of coins to search through, and banks in some areas have had to implement limits on how many coin rolls customers can purchase because the demand has become so intense. YouTube channels devoted to coin collecting have seen explosive growth, with millions of people watching videos about error coins, coin roll hunting, and numismatic discoveries, creating a new generation of collectors who are approaching the hobby not as academic historians but as treasure hunters looking for that one magic coin that could change their lives. The 2018 Roosevelt Dime, worth $150 million, represents the absolute zenith of what's possible in modern era coin collecting, the ultimate prize, the grandest treasure, the one coin that every serious collector dreams about finding but that only 2 people in the entire world have been lucky enough to discover so far, and the key word there is so far, because unlike ancient treasures that are finite and limited, unlike rare historical coins that are all accounted for and locked in collections, the 2018 era might still be out there, maybe several more specimens, maybe dozens, sitting in piggy banks, coin jars, cash registers, vending machines, or forgotten in the pockets of old coats hanging in closets across America. When you search through your 2018 dimes, and I mean really search, taking the time to examine each one carefully rather than just glancing and moving on, you need to be looking for the combination of mirror-like surfaces, frosted design elements, and most importantly, the heavier weight that indicates silver composition. And if you find even one of these characteristics, you should stop immediately and get that coin examined by a professional, because even a coin that's just silver without the proof characteristics, or proof-like without being silver, could still be worth thousands of dollars as a partial error or unusual variety. The authentication and grading process for a potential $150 million coin is incredibly thorough and expensive, typically costing several $1,000s for the full suite of tests including metallurgical analysis, dye analysis, comparison to known specimens, and consensus grading by multiple experts. But if you're potentially holding a 9-figure coin, that few $1,000 investment is infinitesimally small compared to the potential payoff, and any legitimate grading service will work with you on payment arrangements if you can provide preliminary evidence that your coin might be the real deal. The security considerations for owning such a valuable coin are substantial and not to be taken lightly. The 2 known 2018 specimens are kept in bank vaults under maximum security, insured for their full estimated value, which costs tens of thousands of dollars annually in insurance premiums, and their owners have never publicly identified themselves, conducting all transactions and communications through lawyers and agents to maintain anonymity and protect themselves from potential theft attempts. If you were fortunate enough to discover a 3rd specimen, you would need to immediately secure professional insurance, store the coin in a bank safety deposit box or professional vault, never photograph it in a way that reveals identifying information about your location, and work exclusively through established numismatic auction houses and dealers who have experience handling ultra-high-value items and can maintain your privacy throughout any transaction. The future market for the 2018 Roosevelt Dime is almost impossible to predict but trending strongly upward. As more people become aware of these coins through videos like this one, through social media, through news coverage, and through word of mouth, demand will only increase while supply remains essentially fixed at 2 known specimens, creating a perfect storm for continued appreciation that could see these coins valued at $200 million, $250 million, or even higher within the next decade as more billionaire collectors enter the market and compete for the tiny handful of specimens available. Some experts believe that if all 4 coins we've discussed today, the 2021 worth $130 million, the 2015 worth $120 million, the 2003 worth $148 million, and the 2018 worth $150 million, were offered in a single auction event marketed as the sale of the century, the bidding could drive values even higher than current estimates, possibly adding 20% to 30% to each coin's hammer price simply due to the once-in-a-lifetime nature of the opportunity and the competitive intensity among the world's wealthiest collectors. As we close out this deep dive into 4 of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes in existence, I want to leave you with several key takeaways that could genuinely change your financial future if you take them to heart. First, check your change, every single time, every transaction, every coin that passes through your hands, because those few seconds of attention could be the difference between spending 10 cents and discovering $150 million. Second, learn what to look for. Educate yourself about the specific errors, varieties, and characteristics that make coins valuable, because knowledge is literally worth millions in this field, and the information in this video alone could be the most valuable thing you learn all year. Third, be thorough. Don't just glance at coins, actually examine them, look at dates, mint marks, design details, surface qualities, and anything that seems unusual or different from normal. Fourth, trust your instincts. If a coin looks wrong, feels wrong, or just seems different somehow, investigate it further rather than dismissing your intuition, because that gut feeling has led to more major discoveries than you might imagine. Fifth, get professional authentication. If you think you've found something valuable, don't try to sell it on eBay or at a local pawn shop. Invest in professional grading and authentication that will maximize your coin's value and protect you from being taken advantage of by unscrupulous buyers. Sixth, spread the word. Share videos like this with friends and family, because the more people who are educated about valuable coins, the more discoveries will be made, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one who inspires someone else to find their fortune. And finally, never give up, because somewhere out there, mixed in with trillions of ordinary coins, there are treasures waiting to be found, fortunes hiding in plain sight, and life-changing wealth sitting in places so mundane, so ordinary, that most people walk right past it every single day without realizing what they're missing. And with the knowledge you now have from this video, you are no longer one of those people. You are now armed with information that makes you a hunter, a seeker, a person who knows that the next coin you touch could be the one that changes everything, and that possibility, that potential, that electric thrill of knowing that fortune favors not just the bold but the observant, the curious, and the persistent, is what makes coin collecting and treasure hunting one of the most exciting, most accessible, and most potentially rewarding pursuits available to anyone willing to simply pay attention to the world around them. So go forth, check those coins, examine that change, search those rolls, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person featured in a video like this, the next lucky finder, the next overnight millionaire who simply took the time to look at what everyone else ignored, because in the end, that's all it takes, just looking, just caring, just paying attention, and your fortune might already be sitting in your pocket right now, waiting for you to notice it.